Welcome to Adoption Matters, a podcast with real people sharing real stories and getting real about adoption from all three perspectives of the adoption triad. I'm Kim Noeth, one of your co-hosts. I'm a birth mom, and I'll be sharing along with Coach Sharon Butler-Obazee, an adoptee, and Coach Sally Ankerfelt, an adoptive mom. Together, we're going to explore some difficult topics, share frank conversations, guided by our commitment to truth-telling and truth-seeking. And 'tis the season. For a special holiday edition, we have our co-coaches joining us today. Welcome Coach Gayle Swift and Coach
Yep.
Susan David. We thought it would be thought-provoking to open up today's conversation and bring some more voices in. So this month, we're going to talk a little bit about gift giving. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Kim.
Good to be here.
Something we discussed recently as a group that we thought would be a great conversation is the idea around gift giving in the adoption experience and the adoption relationship. I come from more of a closed adoption experience, and in that, I didn't have an opportunity to give my son a gift each year, but I definitely thought about him over the holidays. The holidays would bring up thoughts of, how is he? What's he doing? What I would love to be able to give to him had he been, present in my everyday life. And I see sometimes this brings up some interesting and complexities for other birth moms. Some of the complexities that I've heard shared before were things like, if I get my, child a gift, should I also get a gift for the other child in the family that was adopted as well? And, that's a hard one because she didn't know, was the birth mom present in the relationship? Was she going to be, already filling that need? And should she be the one to fill it? And sometimes that's really hard because there is definitely feelings around that, the complexities around gift giving. And curious, I know a lot of us had more closed adoption experiences, but do you ladies have anything that came up for you in this regard?
Well, for me, we have I have three children through adoption, and each one has varied levels of engagement with their first families. One child has no knowledge or engagement. Another had quite a bit, and one was sort of in between. And I remember thinking about that in terms of especially when we went to see one of my child's birth family around the holidays, and what my other kids were thinking and feeling around that. Because fortunately, it was beautiful that my child's birth mom thought of the other two kids as well. So there was some thoughtfulness around that. But it's a tricky thing. And the other layer of that is just even within my own nuclear family, the gift giving with the kids, making it fair, but not too fair. I've gotten comments where I got things that were too similar, so it didn't seem like I was really thinking about the unique, characteristics of the children. So I agree, it's tough, and especially I can understand how that would be really hard for a birth mom. And then for the adoptive parents to wonder also, how is this going to roll? How is this going to go play out if my one child gets something and the others don't? I do remember that my husband and I were kind of ready for some added acknowledgments of the other kids should something happen. But like I said, it was great how it worked out.
No jealousy. Did you notice any jealousies perhaps about, with each other of noticing that the sibling's birth mom was more, in their life than the other one?
Well, that was, I wouldn't say jealousy, but I think there was pain around that
Mm.
for my other two kids to see that there was this level of involvement and intentionality going on when my one child would never have that kind of knowledge, and the other child had tentative relationships, I'd call it. So I think there was pain around that.
One thing we did that was kind of fun when I first reunited with my son for Christmas, I went and got a present for each year that I missed. So that was a lot of fun. Like I got what I would have gotten him as a 1-year-old, what I would have gotten him,
Oh,
as a 5-year-old. And I had so much fun with that. And I think he did too in the receiving of all of those gifts. I think I did up to the 18th birthday because it just
oh.
was a fun
Sweet.
way to appreciate that.
What a great idea.
Mhm. When my son reunited with his birth mother as an adult, um, every year on his birthday, I would write a letter to his birth mother and send it to his file at the agency. And it turned out she had never gotten any of them. I'm not sure if the agency withheld it or she didn't reach out for it, but she didn't get it. So he brought copies of those with him when he met her in person for the first time, and she was very touched by that.
Oh.
So that even if you can't physically exchange gifts with a birth parent or a birth child, you can have these kind of intangible ways of thinking about them in the moment that might be shared at a later time.
That's really
Mhm.
touching, Gail.
Mhm.
This is great that we're talking about this. I wish I would have thought about it earlier, like when my kids were little, right? And that's what we talk about with adoption attuned parenting. We think about this kind of stuff early on, so that you can kind of, like Gail, set it up. Each year that you're doing something, and it becomes a tradition in your family. How do I want to do it? And then you also have to be flexible because, as we know, kids' ideas about things change, and maybe you would not do the same kind of gift giving or inclusiveness. You might change that depending on where they are in their development, where they are. Maybe they have strong feelings. I don't want to do that this year, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Now, this is all conjecture because with me, we're Jewish, so we don't celebrate Christmas. And people like to kid us about the 8 nights of Hanukkah and my kids get 8 gifts and so forth. What I would say is, yes, when they're little, there's emphasis on it. But as they grew, it became less important, gift giving. So it has less importance than I think than with Christian families, or you don't even have to be Christian, just celebration of Christmas and sharing gifts. I
Valid
don't
point.
think you could
Mhm.
put that much emphasis on it, even at the beginning.
It's interesting talking about all this because I was in a closed adoption also. And so I really didn't have a chance to get to know my family until later in life. I was always curious. Like I was thinking to myself, what are they doing?
Mm.
I have sisters and brothers out there that whole idea of I guess a hero kind of mindset, like I'm sure that theirs is better than mine. And I'm sure my mother had a chance to actually really hug and love on her children. And I wish I could have been there to get one of those hugs too. The whole thing about, one child getting something that the other one doesn't or whatever. I think that happens even in bio families. My kids are
Right?
like,
So true.
my kids,
Very
I
true.
didn't, you got this for her. I don't want this, which, kind of thing. And so I think that happens as sibling rivalry happens whether children are adopted or not. It's just a part of the growth process. And I really didn't have a chance to think about really missing out on something until my sister found out who her mother was. Then I was on high alert at that point on. I wish
What
my
did
mom would have
like,
heard all this stuff that we were talking about too.
Mhm.
As an
mm,
adopted parent, there is so much. She tried so hard, and um, e- she missed on some points, and some points she got right. It's just a part of life. And I think if she had been around now, she would have been so happy to hear about all the things that we're discovering together.
Well,
such
I
a good
think,
point about overthinking it too, and realizing that sometimes it's not the adoption, it is other things too, right?
Right.
well, and I think we have points of insecurity and fear of rejection. There's so much emotional baggage that adopted parents have, adoptees have, birth parents have. So when we're trying to communicate, in the back of my mind is like, is this okay? Should I say this?
Mm.
Instead of just asking outright, are you comfortable with, or can we do this? if we could have that open, clear communication, it would be so much better instead of thinking, I feel uncomfortable giving my birth mother a gift because a gift seems so insulting. Uh, I have her child.
Mm.
What gift could possibly be appropriate? I remember thinking that after we met. It just seems so insignificant to give her a gift.
Very true. And often I'm asked what types of gifts. And what I found, especially for birth moms, the gifts that are received so much are the homemade, handmade ones from the birth mom. So giving a child maybe a stuffed animal that you made with your t-shirt, or, you know, a teddy bear made, or a blanket made out of your, you know, clothing item, or a book that you read to them. You know, those are the gifts that I hear a lot. And often I hear, and it kind of makes me sad. It comes up where the very first year after placement, the birth mom will be like, what can I get for the adoptive parent? Because I feel so grateful that they're doing this job that I couldn't do, kind of thing. So what could I give? And interesting, Gayle, how you just kind of modeled how on your end, you're thinking, what kind of gift could I possibly give? You know, and it's a funny thing, you know, how the complexities even in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you don't want people to feel insulted.
Yeah. And Sharon, something that you said made me remember something my son mentioned, that at holidays, those were a lot of times the arena that would open up some of these thoughts, because he'd be gathered in a room with relatives and kind of like looking at all of his cousins, you know, where normally they're not all together in the same area. And I remember him sharing how healing it was when he was able to look in a room of relatives and see people that looked like him, see family. And that touched me so much, because like you don't realize that's absent until, you know, you're met with it sometimes.
So true. The first time I had a chance to be with my biological siblings, and there's four sisters on one side and three brothers, all related, on my dad's side. And we had a big Christmas party. My sister, who I'm closest with, my bio sister, decided to have everyone come to her house. It was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, all these people. I was so like, my
These are
dreams
my
had been
people.
fulfilled, you know? It was
Wow.
amazing.
Wow.
Well, you know, the greatest gift we can give is acceptance and belonging.
Yes. What a great way to recap this whole conversation, Gail. Absolutely. Because that's what it's all about, finding acceptance in each other with what is, right?
Yep, and I'd say too, communication, not maybe not being as afraid to have open communication, to ask the questions. Now that we are in a different space, usually with adoption versus years and years ago, hopefully some of that openness is occurring more and more. I know one of our guests on the podcast quite a while ago talked about openness too, and you know, communicating with his kids, but also with others, you know.
And being vulnerable enough to say, hey, I'm imagining that it could be this way for you. Is it? Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because it might not be.
Yeah. Well, thanks, everyone. We're wishing everyone a very happy holiday here from the Gift family. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And do anyone have anything that they would like to say before we close here?
Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for being my colleagues.
Thanks for
Yes,
sharing, everybody, too. Yeah.
right.
Happy
Absolutely.
holidays.
Yes.
Happy
And
holidays.
Hanukkah.
Merry
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us at Adoption Matters. We hope that you'll tune in again next week.